Hi, everyone. Today I'll just be giving you an outline history of the Albert J. Cook Arthropod Research Collection. As the director, and Gary Parsons is here. He's our collections manager and sort of the heart of the collection, too. All right. Like a lot of our collections, the MSU collection started in 1867 by Albert J. Cook, who was a professor at the Agriculture College, and he started teaching the students how to identify local insects. So he began a teaching collection before there was ever an entomology department. So our collection sort of has become or recognized by the faculty as sort of the heart of the entomology department, since it's preceded pretty much everything. And by 1878, there was about 1,200 specimens in the collection. And then the collection and the college got a really great recognition from a U.S. Senator, Macmillan, purchased and donated Tepper's collection of about 12,000 watts, and also a large beetle collection. And I don't think there's ever any senator these days, or since the 1800s, that would do such a thing, perhaps, but not lately. And so through the time, we had Charles Riley donated some Hemiptera. We've got a donation of microliths from the American Museum, and then Orthoptera and Lepidoptera. And through 50 years of growth, we had the first, I guess, more influential director was Rufus Pettit. And during this time, he solicited specimens from around the country and around the world to make a large reference collection. And also, probably one of the first women in entomology, Eugenie McDaniel, also taught but also curated the collection. I think her emphasis was aphids. So yes, there was a great buildup. And so they transferred the collection from one older building to the brand new building of entomology. There was the great days where you could actually park your car right next to your office. Can't really do that anymore. But and so by 1950, we had 100,000 specimens representing 350 families and 15,000 species. And this is, I just took this picture, there are still specimens left to be curated. And this is sort of the true hard bottom. This is hardwood, and they drilled a hole into there and then sucked the pin into the hole to keep it stable. So it's, we just keep those because it's great for this sort of historical reference. And you can tell the undergrads, back in my day, we beat the pins into hardwood. Stop complaining about foam bottoms. Then in 1948, we moved into our current space, the Natural Science Building. And during this time, there was a great advancement for the collection, because we got, there was at least 1,500 square feet of space where the collection resided. And there was brand new cabinets, custom-made cabinets. You'll see a picture of those also. But so we increased in space, which allowed the collection to grow. I guess in the whole history, the major donation was from Dreisbach, who had a degree in entomology, but worked for Dow, if I recall correctly, and he collected about 250,000 insects, which we have, a lot of Hymenoptera. And again, there was a growth in collection of sort of Lepidoptera sort of ran the scene throughout from the 50s to the 80s by Owen Muslin, who still comes in at 85 to curate our moths. And of course, there was more donations. And we had a growth of our international holdings during this time period. And then in the 80s, Fred Stair was appointed as director, and there were several part-time managers. And we had, the department received a large endowment, and part of that endowment is coming to the museum still to today to help with just general operating expenses. And during this time, we had this continued growth of the immature collection and also Lepidoptera. And there was also more trips to around the world, Brazil, Malaysia, New Guinea. And Fred, to this day, likes to go to Brazil or to other places and do some general collecting and giving us the bulk of the specimens that we then process. And then finally, during this time, Fred had tried to get a collections improvement grant, and the major criticism was that they didn't have a full-time collections manager. So the department at the time stepped up and hired Gary, who's here right now, in 1999. And this is when the collection started to take on a bit more of a rebirth. It had sort of waned with Fred and towards his retirement. So there's a lot of cleaning up to do of domestics and also more cleaning up of curation. And there was an increased involvement with outreach at this time, maybe a little bit before this time, the Bug House, which is the department's outreach, but pretty much organized and sort of run by Gary, or at least the majority of displays, and helps to organize the graduate students and undergrads who are giving tours. But with this sort of new hope, with Gary being there were still problems. It occupied at this time 2,000 square feet, but part of that square footage was a hall where the Lepidoptera collection was stored. And the fire marshal wasn't too happy, so he had the department install walls on either end of the hall and the doors, so to just in case a fire broke out with those Lepidoptera, so it would be contained. So we had no space to expand, and those 1950 vintage cabinets were sort of failing. They no longer closed. A lot of the door handles had broken off, and I don't know what they were thinking, but our drawers were sort of custom, and the old ones are about that thick, I guess, to accommodate a number 7 pin or so. And they also started failing. The gaskets were cracking, the knobs were falling off, their messes were getting into. Oh yeah, and then with this expansion, we had to open at least over 100 or so drawers stored and open to the rooms, and this was where most of our domestic problem came from. And the consequences of all this is that the overall curation of the Ark was pretty poor. It was just a 5 on the McGinley scale, and we had a low rate of loans and visitors and a backlog of specimens to be pinned, and also just hard bottom trays and unstandardized drawers. So during this time, Fred officially retired, and the department got a position for systemist, and for systemist and director for the collection, and that's where I came along. And I brought a bunch of undergraduates and a bunch of graduate students, and there was a lot of potential in this collection because we had more than 1 million pin specimens. We had okay holdings of holotypes, and it had significant holdings from the Great Lakes. So there was a lot of potential for that collection's improvement grant. And I was also allotted about another 1,000 square feet of space for 2 other rooms, so this would solve our expansion problems. And we had developed a plan for this collection improvement grant. So remove our outdated natural storage, renovate our new space, and we didn't spend the $10,000 to take out the fireplace, so we worked around it. And we wanted to update, during this process, update nomenclature for all our species names and electronically record the names and the numbers of specimens and also their broad geographic affiliation. So to get a face up on the web, to list our specimens, we thought as a good way for advertising. And we set out to use specified 5 for this. Now we just needed the money. Several attempts at getting a collection improvement grant was not successful, but then the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act came about. And finally, in 2009, I got some trickle-down money through NSF, and we could fulfill at least part of our grant vision for the collection. So we got to do with some funding also from the department and the college, we got to renovate the rooms, pull out old carpeting, tile, some paint, and then buy a few cabinets. But so now with the NSF grant, the collection is protected by at least one reliable barrier to insect pests. And we have transferred 650,000 beetles and wasps into new trays. So now at least half of our pin collection is curated to modern standards. We have specified 5 software working. We have about 35,000 species in the collection. Those are all listed. The names have been checked as the best we can, just to make sure they're still valid. And they are, you can now search to see if we have that species in the collection. And we went beyond our objectives where we expanded we updated our database to specify 6, and it expanded to include specimen level data. So we have about 10,000, 15,000 specimen records in there right now. But this is done in the side since we don't have any direct funding for entering data. We still have specify 5 up on our web that you can search. We're just waiting for specify to provide a web face so we can connect it. I don't know when that's going to end up coming. And so in addition, we lived up to our responsibility to sort of reinvest in America. We spent about $140,000 of that on the cabinets and storage from American companies. And we also employed a graduate student and undergraduates during this time. But this was kind of scoffed at by some more conservatives, and I had got interviewed for the Hannity show by Tucker Carlson, which in the end I think the collections stood their stand and like sort of justified their use and what they provide to the American public. So I got a lot of good feedback through blogs from conservatives that were sort of rooting for me. So so you can turn into a potentially fatal situation into some good. Anyway, so now, as of 2009, we had got more funding, which we're very grateful for. We've continued curating the collections to modern standards, so we're working on Hymenoptera and putting them into new trays with headers and also verifying the names once again. And we've also moved our spiders into new Bibles with the updated nomenclature, and we finally did a head count of those. We have about 17,000 specimens, determined specimens, and another 300 Bibles to be determined. So this puts our collection up to probably close to 2 million specimens, including slides and Bibles. But all this work was made possible really by a lot of people. Our undergraduate student employees, our graduate students, and our adjunct curators, which we've seen a great increase from 4 when I got there, almost doubled, to 7. And I think without them, a lot of this work, a lot of this grunt work would not get done.